Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Again, I want to thank Dr. Ibis Moreno Lozano for the invitation. And of course, I want to thank all of you for your interest in this workshop. My name is Ricardo Arencibia. I've been working in libraries and research institutes during the last 25 years, and I am here today to expose some of my experiences measuring and mapping scientific knowledge networks. Let me start with a personal anecdote. 30 years ago, when I was very young, I studied for a technical degree in cartography. The idea of measuring and mapping was always a challenge for me, so I got my first job as a cartographer making geographic maps. And however, one day, for different reasons, God decided to change some things in my life. I started a career as a librarian. I got my PhD in information sciences, and to my surprise, most of the techniques used in my doctoral dissertation were mapping techniques. But in this case, not to make geographical maps, but maps to visualize the structure of scientific knowledge. And the way I learned to create this new kind of maps was using bibliometric techniques and social network analysis as a methodological framework. Social network analysis is a technique that studies social structures through the use of networks and graph theory. From this approach, life is like a network. All of us are nodes of this network, and we are connected through different types of links. We could be friends, we could be neighbors, we could be part of the same Facebook community, etc. Social scientists have used the concept of social networks since early in the 20th century to analyze the relationships between members of social communities. However, in 21st century, computer sciences allow us to develop new network models and methods. So the network approach right now has been applied to a lot of sciences, including biology, medicine, engineering, literature, and even my own field, the science of science. Science of science is an emerging interdisciplinary field focused on the study of scientific activity. We study the scientific impact of research as well as the productivity and collaboration of authors, institutions, and countries using different metrics and visualizations. From this perspective, science is a really complex ecosystem. Science is like a great network of institutions, people, ideas, and norms. All these elements are strongly interconnected to constantly generating new knowledge. This new knowledge is usually published in scientific journals and books. These journals and books are covered by a large databases of scientific literature, and we must be able to analyze these databases if we want to identify research fronts, hot topics, and research gaps in the scientific literature. And that's what we'll be doing in this workshop. And how do we do that? First, by identifying the most relevant documents on a topic in a bibliographic database. Then, by exporting the bibliographic records of these documents to process them with a computer program specialized on social network analysis. And finally, by identifying in these records three types of networks that can be useful for identifying research fronts: collaboration networks, citation networks, and networks of associated terms. In this section of the workshop, I'll be working with a computer program named BossViewer developed by the Leiden University in the Netherlands, and I will also be working with three bibliometric techniques to build networks: co-authorship analysis, bibliographic coupling, and co-word analysis. Let me start with the first step of the procedure. And what is this first step? Of course, the bibliographic search. We need to select the database. We can use multidisciplinary databases such as Web of Science, Scopus, Dimensions, OpenAlex, Google Scholar, or specialized ones like PubMed, for example. PubMed is specialized on medicine. Then we need to elaborate the search strategy to identify bibliographic records in the database. And finally, we need to export these records to text files. In this workshop, considering that almost all participants are future engineers, I'm going to use a search strategy to identify hot topics related to machine learning and deep learning in the field of engineering. I'm sure this is a very interesting research topic for you. Let's see how we do that. I will search scientific literature in one of the most relevant databases, the Web of Science, developed by Clarivate Analytics here in the United States. This is the main interface of Web of Science. With a simple click in Advanced Search, we open a new interface for the elaboration of the query. And now I'm going to write a clear search strategy. We need to find the terms machine learning and deep learning in the field TS of the database. The field TS includes terms in title, abstract, and keywords of papers covered by the database. And then we refine the search strategy considering the field SU. The field SU covered a classification scheme of 152 areas, and we are restricting our search strategy to the area of engineering. As you can see, we obtained more than 200,000 papers. However, we are looking for hot topics, so we need to restrict the search to relevant papers. This is hot papers and highly cited papers. These papers are highly cited because they are very important for the scientific community. We refine again the search, and we finally obtain a dataset of 1,072 papers. The next step is to export these documents to a plain text file. In a new window, we select the first 500 records considering the full records and cited references and click Export. We repeat the process for the next 500 records again. This is because Web of Science only allows us to export 500 records each time. And finally, we export the last 72 records. Once we have the 3 datasets exported, we can go to the second step, the information processing and visualization. We need to select the computer program to process the data. There is a lot of software specialized on this, such as PostViewer, SiteSpace, Bibliometrics, etc. I'm going to use PostViewer in this case. Then we need to select the analytical technique to detect hot topics. In this workshop, there are authorship analysis, bibliographic coupling analysis, and keyword analysis. And finally, we are going to build the networks, explore their links, and detect the hot topics. Let's see how we do that. First, we look for the execution file of PostViewer. PostViewer is free available. You can go to the website of Leiden University and download the software. Then we execute the software, and this is the main interface. You'll see the bibliometric maps in the main panel. You also have an option panel where you can select the size, the colors, and labels of the network nodes and background. There is an information panel where you can see the metrics related to each node, and an overview panel that helps us to navigate across the maps. But now we'll use the action panel to build the first bibliometric map. In this action panel, we select the option Create, and we'll create a map based on bibliographic data. Click Next, and we'll read data from a bibliographic database file. We have 5 options here. However, we need to choose the Web of Science because our previous bibliographic search was conducted on this database. So we can select the file, the Web of Science option, and we can look for the 3 datasets previously downloaded from this database. Okay. Once we select the file, the software starts to read them. And now is the moment to choose the bibliometric technique to identify hot topics. Let me start with the use of a collaboration network based on co-authorship analysis. Collaboration networks map the connection between authors based on co-authorship, helping us to understand the structure of research collaboration. Imagine each node as a network, in this network as an author, and each line connecting them as a shared paper. By visualizing this network, we can identify clusters of authors who collaborate frequently as well as isolated researchers or groups. This type of network reveals strong clusters of researchers, isolated areas, or even potentially unexplored partnerships. Let's start with the collaboration network. We'll choose the co-authorship analysis. We can select countries to analyze international collaboration, or we can select institutions to analyze collaboration between universities and other scientific organizations. However, in this case, we'll select authors as unit of analysis, and we'll reduce the first names of authors to initials. Click Next. We have to set a threshold for the minimum number of documents per author to focus on the most prolific authors. We have here more than 3,000 authors. However, we'll use authors with more than 1 document. Click Next. This is the list of authors, their number of documents, and total citations, and links between them. Click on Finish. And finally, we can see the collaboration network of 745 authors specialized on machine learning and deep learning in the field of engineering. As you can see, the software uses a clustering algorithm which organizes all these authors in 29 clusters, each of them represented by a different color. We can navigate across the map with the aim of analyzing and understanding the links between authors. In this case, the 29 clusters represents groups of authors specialized in a specific research topic. Considering that we identified these clusters in highly cited papers, each of these clusters represents a hot topic studied by one group of authors. If we want to identify the most important topics, we can refine the network to select groups conformed by authors with 10 or more articles. And a new visualization shows 64 authors grouped in 4 clusters, and these could be interpreted as the hot topic with more research activity in the field we are analyzing. When we analyze co-authorship networks, we often look for dense clusters. This is indicating highly collaborative groups, or bridges. This is authors connecting different groups, or isolated nodes. This structure helps us identify influential research teams and overlooked or disconnected research areas. Let me show you now another technique that, in my opinion, is more accurate than co-authorship to identify research fronts and hot topics. This new technique is based on citation networks. Citation analysis involves examining which papers cite each other, which help us understand the intellectual structure of research. This network can reveal influential works or hubs of knowledge within a field. I don't have time to present all citation-based analytical techniques. I will choose only one of them, bibliographic coupling. Bibliographic coupling connects documents that cite the same references. Documents with a high number of common references are strongly connected. So these documents share knowledge bases, and this can be used to identify research fronts or emerging fields. Let me start with the procedure. We select the bibliographic coupling technique to analyze our dataset. Our units of analysis in this case are documents. Click Next. We want to analyze the structure of knowledge represented in the 1,072 highly cited papers on machine learning and deep learning in the field of engineering. Click Next. Here is the list of documents, their total citations and links. Click Next. And this is the bibliographic coupling network we obtain. The nodes here are documents. Size of the nodes depends on the amount of citations received by each of them, and the links between them are the amount of references they have in common. 11 documents are disconnected from the main component and were excluded. All documents are structured in 9 clusters, and we have to identify which are the research fronts, the emerging research line, or the hot topic involved in each of these clusters. For example, in this case, we have to check the documents involved in this cluster of brown nodes. Considering the titles of papers, this is a research front specialized on artificial intelligence applied to geosciences, Earth observation, and remote sensing. And the main hot topics in this area are related to deep learning methods for a hyperspectral anomalies detection, hyperspectral image classification, and prediction of spectral information. Another example is this small group of papers that represents an emerging hot topic. We analyze the content of these documents, and they are related to artificial intelligence in marine science and engineering, particularly machine learning and deep learning methods to predict trajectories, especially ships' trajectories. This is very related to maritime Internet of Things. We are talking here about maritime autonomous surface ships, intelligent maritime networks, smart traffic services, prevention of accidents, etc. And there is a lot of methods of machine learning and deep learning involved, including backpropagation networks, neural networks, transformers, etc. In my opinion, I insist, this is one of the most useful techniques to detect research fronts. However, I'll show you another bibliometric technique frequently used to detect hot topics. Let's talk about cohort networks, which are built by analyzing the co-occurrence of keywords in papers. By examining how terms are connected, we can see the relationships between frequently used keywords and identify emerging themes or overlooked topics. This can also reveal gaps. This is underexplored areas that lack sufficient keywords or terms. In cohort networks, tightly connected clusters of keywords often represents major topics or themes in a field. Isolated terms or weakly connected clusters can indicate emerging or less developed areas that could be explored further. Let me start with the procedure. We must select the co-occurrence technique. We have to choose here. We can select Keyword Plus or Author Keywords as unit of analysis, or both. In this case, we select both. This is all keywords. Click Next. We have more than 5,000 keywords describing the content of our dataset. In this case, I'm going to select around 600 keywords with presence in 3 or more papers of our dataset. Here they are. Click Next. This is the list of keywords. They are co-occurrence in papers and they are links. Click Finish. And finally, we obtain the co-occurrence network of 672 keywords structured in 5 clusters or groups. These groups can also be identified as research fronts or research areas or knowledge domains that involve the hot topics of the field. The nodes of this network are keywords. Their size depends on the frequency of keywords was assigned to a paper, and the link is the number of co-occurrence between keywords. As you can see, there are 3 big groups of keywords that represent quite general research fronts. These groups represent machine learning models, deep learning models, and predictive data models. Let's say they would be the 3 consolidated groups of hot topics in the field. However, there are 2 other smaller groups which can be considered as emerging fronts, and one of them is focused on reinforcement learning, particularly on topics related to autonomous driving, autonomous vehicles, sensors, trajectories, etc. Clearly, this is a topic that you can investigate, and you can be sure that the results of your research on this topic will have a very fast impact on the international scientific community. So I think these three examples allow us to understand the importance of social network analysis and bibliometric techniques for our research activity. Of course, there are more useful bibliometric techniques and methods. We don't have time here to show you all, but I'm sure that Dr. Ibis Moreno Lozano will present these techniques to you in future workshops. Today, we explored 3 bibliometric techniques based on social network analysis to uncover key insights in scientific literature. Using co-authorship networks help us to see collaboration patterns. The bibliographic coupling networks reveal influential research fronts, and co-word networks show how keywords form thematic clusters. However, in all cases, the use of a dataset of highly cited papers published during the last 3 years allow us to identify hot topics that right now are relevant to the engineering scientific community. Strong links in these networks clearly reveal the hot topics. Weak links help us to uncover research gaps, and these gaps are also opportunities to start a new research line. Anyway, by combining these techniques, we gain a powerful overview of our research field. I'll be very happy if you start to use these techniques on your own projects. I just want to thank again for your attention, and now I invite you to learn more about the software that can help you develop this analysis. Thank you very much.